Hey, everybody. Welcome to the ActionCAST. I'm Clint Nobles, operational methodologist. And today, oh my Lord, we're talking about income. We're talking about impact, how you can truly have a meaningful impact in your business and be successful. That's all that's happening today on the ActionCAST. And the guests we have, I'm telling you, this lady is like a silent assassin. She's a ninja, people. All right. You got to learn. So, this is the ActionCAST, and we're talking income and impact. Oh, welcome everybody to the ActionCAST. Everybody that's joining in live, you're just coming on, watching a replay, no matter where you are. Welcome to this edition of the ActionCAST. We're talking income and impact. And as entrepreneurs, that's one of the driving forces that we have in life. We want to have income, and we want to make sure that income is fueling the impact we have. But there's a strategy to this. It feels like a big mystery sometimes of how we can do this. And the lady that is joining us today is a force of nature, and she's a force for greatness. Jenny Johnson, we met a little while back, and I have had the privilege of seeing the growth, development of not only your business, but of you, your team, and your mindset as an entrepreneur. And what you're bringing to the table today, I'm so excited for those tuning in because so many people are going to relate to what you're talking about. I know I sure do. Every time you talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. I know that. So thank you so much, Jenny, for being on. You're so incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So as we get into this income and impact, tell us a little bit about just kind of your story, where you come from, what business you have, right? You're an incredible home care owner, Heart of Gold Care Solutions. And just tell us a little bit about your business and why you love doing what you're doing.
So I'm a nurse of 22 years, registered nurse of 22 years. I live in Palm Springs, California. I would have literally worked and retired at the bedside. I love hospital nursing. But in 2016, the story has to be told. I'll keep it short and sweet, hopefully. But I had a 7-year-old daughter at the time who became suddenly ill. She was admitted to UCLA for 12 weeks. I had to go to HR and request time off. I was scared. We had a 2-income household. To cut that in half and go be with my daughter to heal her was super scary. And I remember that feeling a year later when I was headed to go back to work, and I just could not bring myself to go work in a hospital again. I never wanted to have to ask permission to get time off. I didn't want to be scared about losing income. By the way, my daughter is completely better now. She had Lyme disease. That's my little plug to make sure tick-borne illness is real. But point being, it was scary, and I wanted to make sure that I never had to be in that place again. Through a series of events. I didn't start a business right away, but started working privately as a registered nurse. We have vast income here in Palm Springs, very wealthy people. They hired me privately to work for them at a very high price tag. And I could not believe that that was something people would pay for, to have a nurse work for them privately, which led me to start a concierge nursing business. And most of that actually was private duty plastic surgery recovery. Kept getting calls though, as I built some traction on the internet for caregivers. So I would just literally look up on my phone home care agencies with good Google reviews and farm them out. And then one day I just decided, I'm going to research home care. Did not have any idea about home care. I thought everybody knew like how to just take care of somebody, honestly. And then that's actually where I found you guys. I believe you just started your Facebook group. And then just kind of dabbled in it. I almost threw in the towel in home care. I did not like it, but I'm so glad I didn't. So there's that. I brought in those 2 service lines, and then now I have a geriatric care management service line as well, and we can talk about that. So those are my 3 main things, and that's how the business started. And the daughter that was sick actually named my company. How awesome is that? So super grateful. It's just a really neat tie-in.
And so for those listening out there, that's why she's a force of nature, right? That's why she's a force for greatness. Like literally, she started something that she loved. She wanted to do. She wanted to see. She saw this need, this necessity, and began this. And now she's one right after the other, right? Knocking things down, which is the paramount character trait of entrepreneurs. We go in, we attack, we tackle, and we tackle everything like that. We go in and we just bust through the bulwark, right? It's like we're going to put our head down and go into this. Um, and a lot of times we make the income from that. You start growing in income, which growing in income oftentimes results in increased stress, increased anxiety, and all. Now you have all these business worries and all these family worries. So a lot of the people that are listening, I know, come from the same background as you.
Mhm.
And as growing through this, kind of walk me through your emotions and your feelings of when you really started growing this business. How did you feel about that? Did you feel like an entrepreneur?
No.
Feel like no.
I am a master minimizer. I'm going to probably go through some moments of being vulnerable in this because I just now really respect people who are super vulnerable. One of my character defects is I minimize. And so I don't really give myself credit or give credit to what I'm doing. And at the time, and this will be part of, I guess I should share this now. I didn't market. I'm very lucky because I've been a nurse here for so long that people, especially my nurse friends and doctor friends and stuff would hear about me. And so I was pulling in about 500 in revenue without even trying. For 3 years, I did that. And so I bring that up though, because I guess it wasn't really hard. I know that sounds really, bougie to say. Like, it wasn't hard to bring in 500 in revenue. I just was really blessed that I had a lot of connections here, and this Palm Springs area is quite small, in a sense. But don't get me wrong. There was moments of stress, especially when we brought in the caregiving, because I didn't have control. I'm not used to. I like to control my world, and so sending a person out to go and represent me was highly stressful, like sleepless nights, anxiety. I was shocked at how sometimes, no matter how much you orient, coach, and train, sometimes people will show up and represent you. So no, it did not. But I also did not have good systems in place. But we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. And tell action leaders. That's made a huge difference. So again, my source of stress was I minimize. It was hard for me to be, lose control and all that kind of stuff, and even go out and market. And as outgoing as I am, and you can see that, it's not easy to go out and talk to somebody about something you don't know much about. And I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. So I said I thought I would die at the bedside because I loved that. So there's definitely a lot of learning.
So in this learning experience, let's talk to this a lot because home care is a passion-driven business. We have a lot of passion in it, which gives this angst. And we were talking about this before the show started. This guilt association to income versus impact. When you start making a lot of income, well, there's business hats you have to wear. And we talk about this in Action Leaders a lot, that you start making decisions based on business decisions, not emotional or passion driven decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there becomes this guilt association. So for a lot of nurses out there coming from your background, what is one of the ways that you really started thinking like a business owner so that you could have really begin having that income that fueled your impact?
Okay. Another vulnerable moment. It was really actually early last year. I am now divorced. My husband at the time and I started this business together. But last year, divorce happens, and I had a turning point. I actually did go get a job at a surgery center early last year just because I needed a security blanket. In my head, I needed a security blanket. Looking back, I didn't. The business was doing fine. But last June, I decided to let it go. I said I had two ways to go. Here I'm trying to run a business and work a full-time job, and I didn't really need to. I just cut the cord, again, joined Action Leaders. But truth be told, even without Action Leaders, it was me drawing a line in the sand and making that decision. I'm going to go for it. For me, I had two teenage daughters that relied on me. And I was like, they will never go through some of that emotional trauma they had experienced for a couple of years within a marriage that, was not doing so well. I was going to turn that ship around. I wanted to make a legacy for them. I want to make a legacy for myself. And by now I've been 3 years into the senior industry and seeing some of these people who call me and can't afford the level of care they want. That was actually something that was important to me. So, I already know I get great care. I know I'm an excellent nurse. And I knew I could execute that level with some coaching and training and mentoring as far as teaching others to do the type of care that I wanted. But I really had to focus on myself and my immediate circle, which was my girls. So that is literally what drove me to get
So it
successful.
sounds like in this transformation, because that's really
Mhm.
what it was, in this transformation from nurse to owner operator, in this transformation, a lot of the strength you found wasn't external. It wasn't just going out learning new things, finding new things. You actually did a lot of internal impact first before you were really focused on external impact or really achieving it consistently. Sounds like internal impact became a real force and function for that income. So talk me through that just a little bit. What internal impact were you really wanting to achieve? And what are some of the ways that you kind of structured that out? Like, yes, if nurses listening right now,
Mhm.
how can they get that internal?
So, focusing honestly on my emotional health was the number one thing. I knew I had in my mind at the time, I have, I think, a few more categories now, but I had a financial side and an emotional side. And I knew if I could get this business to a level in my mind where I thought I should be, which is funny. I've now exceeded that. But early last year of 2023, I just was like, I've got to get emotionally right and I've got to get financially right. Those were my two boxes that I needed to take care of. And I knew the best way to do that would actually to be able to stay in the entrepreneurial lane. Going back and working for someone else would not fit well within those boxes. Having to punch a clock and request time off. By the way, that's actually was a turning point. I had to request time off at that surgery center. I was like, I don't want to request time off because for 3 years prior, I'd done the concierge nursing. I was like, oh, but again, those little tiny things that happened, and I was like, no way, I can't do that with these kids. I need freedom and flexibility. So those were the two boxes in my life on the inside, I guess, if that's what you're talking about, that
Mhm.
internal compass that I needed to figure out, and that's kind of also what drove me to keep trucking along.
Yeah, so you found something internal that really created the banner, the kind of the benchmark for why you had to be
Absolutely.
successful,
Yep.
why you had to continue it. So let's talk a little bit to this income piece because the impact we'll get to in just a minute, but the income piece for those watching, just tuning in, we're talking about income and impact, how you can have it as a business owner, not just in your business, but
Mhm.
truly in your family, in your life, the real impact. So let's talk about the income piece for just a minute because walk us through the past 6 months where your business, you put a focus on it. Like you said, you were growing, you didn't do marketing, and I love how you say you were lucky and you had, and I always think this is funny. People are like, oh, I was lucky to have all these connections, but you also were a bad A nurse for years in the area that built those connections. So, right, it's
Mhm.
not that you were lucky, it's that you're good, and
Oh,
you were consistent at being good. Luck is often misconstrued because it's actually consistency of quality and integrity. So, you have this quality and integrity that you've built along the way, but talk about how your business grew. You mentioned systems
mhm.
earlier. So coming from a nursing background, not the entrepreneurial side, right? Walk us through this transition of doing to creating structure and systems to help you do.
So I will take you back to August of last year, and it was through just networking with other people within this group and everything of hiring my first hire. It was scary for me. I hope she watches this, my little Yanni, but she still works for me. But she was just part time. We'd fill in, she would cover for me. I knew I needed some of that because, again, remember that emotional financial piece, though, that emotional side, I wanted to be present for my kids. So I had to bring her in. Fast forward, we probably talk about this. I took my kids to Paris in London at New Year's. Again, that trajectory of making sure I stayed with that line of sight of being there for my girls. But also, when I was on that trip, although business had grown and it was doing better, and I was doing much better as far as an entrepreneur, handing over tasks to a team member, I knew on that trip, come January, I'm flipping going for it. I had not really yet gone out in the community, like just cold calling, walking in, making new connections, leveraging, my current little client base and seeing from that group who I could talk to, from, their doctors to their physical therapists, whatever. I came back, and literally by mid-January, I was just out there in the community. The best part of that experience was obviously the confidence I gained, but I think that goes without knowing, was seeing how bad, God, there's other people from my area watching, it's not so great out here. And I was like, I've got this. That's all it took. I definitely made more connections and stuff, but I thought, oh my God, I am doing a kick-ass job at this. I found that there are people out there that just want to send a warm body, or if I would go to certain communities or skilled nurses, and I was literally information finding. It wasn't necessarily saying, hi, I'm Jenny with Heart of Gold, and we offer home care and nursing. Here's my cards. But it was really me doing some investigation and stuff. And the apathy I found out in our area, and I do think it's actually across, our country, but for giving seniors like great care and solutions and opportunities to age in place, or to get them to a place where they can be safe and speak up and advocate for them, it just blew my mind. It only took me about a month of being out in the community, walking around. So anyway, from there, I literally was like, I've got this. I know I can grow this. So at that time, I was hanging out at only about 275 hours a week. And 3 weeks ago, I don't think you know this, I even tipped the 1,000-hour-a-week mark. We only stayed there for a brief time. We lost a good high volume client, but it doesn't matter. I'm still now hanging out consistently at 8:30 to 9:50 hours a week, give or take, just depending on the week. But and honestly, that just came from getting out in the community and talking and seeing what a better product I offer.
So that's literally almost like 4 times the growth.
I guess
right?
so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's that's amazing. And you talk about, you knew in January you're going to come back, you're going to put pedal to the metal. The energy, the emotion, the fuel you had for that, it didn't just come from nowhere. It sounds like you actually leveraged the income you were making in the business to create an impact, because you mentioned Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get into this for just a second, because oftentimes we look at impact as this external force. I got to go, take care of every homeless person in the world, make sure every person has a meal. And we look at all these gigantic moments, but you actually created impact where it truly mattered to you and what your real goal was in your family.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through this Paris trip, because Paris sounds amazing anyway, but getting to experience it and be this assassin entrepreneur that's taking your daughters to this incredible trip. Walk me through that. Like what led up to that? Why Paris? And what did you feel in the process of doing it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew in August, when I brought on one of my caregivers and promoted her to being in the office, I knew I wanted to take them on a trip of a lifetime. Again, I never thought I'd be divorced. It was pretty traumatic for me. And I didn't want to be alone on the holidays, frankly. And I'm like, I didn't want my kids and I to sit around for 2 weeks, when they're off on break. And so I just said, we're going somewhere for New Year's. I let them pick. And so they picked Europe, and one wanted Paris, one wanted London, because we're Disney freaks. So Disney Paris, and one wanted to go to Harry Potter World in London. So that's why we landed there. But anyway, hiring her with the true intention was so I could get them to Europe. But also I knew I wanted to grow at that time. I just didn't quite know how that all worked, but I just knew I had to invest some dollars into somebody so that I could continue to grow. So that's how we ended up in Paris and vacationing with them and just having the time of our life, honestly. And I had the income to do it. So it was awesome.
So, congratulations on that, on setting a goal and achieving it. So many times we feel like that's something that's, pie in the sky element. But let's talk about this intentionality that you did this, because impact is not something that happens by chance. You don't happen to create an impact. We see pictures on or videos online all the time, like this person saves a cat out of a tree. Probably not the first time that person's done an unselfish act, right? And there's been lots of things leading up to it. So let's talk about the intentionality of impact, because income is something that as business owners and operators and entrepreneurs, we know how to do it. You know how to make income. And it's whether it's making income through your own effort or hiring people to go out and make income, you know how to make income. But let's talk about the intentionality of impact, because when we say I'm going to make income, we say, well, that means I need clients, which means I need caregivers, which means I need to get more applications in, which means I need to make more referral connections. We have all these steps in our mind, but you actually created a path for impact. You said, I want to make an impact. I want to take them on this trip. What do I have to do? And you hired someone. Walk me through this intentionality. Why was it so important that you begin planning for the outcome that you wanted?
I mean, looking back, I guess on that trip, it was so important for me. I needed to be honest, I wanted to prove to myself I could do it. You know, again, this was all, I was blindsided. I did not expect to be a single mom. As far as intentionality for my girls, you hit the nail on the head. You know, people learn by not what you say, it's what you do. I want to teach my girls that even through adversity, and by the way, they've shined through this great, but, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We can make this happen. And in my mind at the time, it was like, I'm going to show them by example that, you know, that life isn't going to be perfect. Things are going to happen. You know what I mean? The family's not together in the same unit that we thought, but it doesn't mean our world is ending. And so for me, I wanted to be able to get them to that place where we had the light at the end of the tunnel. And so it did. It had to start with the business, though, because obviously I needed the money to be able to do this. But I am very much a person driven by when I put an intention out there, when I put a goal out there. And that's also what happened in January. Sometimes it'll take me months to actually make the decision, but once I do it, it's game on. And so that's exactly what happened in January. So I knew my first line was get them to Europe. Let's have a blast. And we did. And then I knew during that trip, when I get back, okay, it's now game time. And then it became game time. So the intention was there. And, you know, one of the intentions was I'm going to do $1 million in revenue in 2024. I've done 500. Okay, it wasn't that hard, but I'm going to get to $1 million, and I know I'm over $1 million, going to be over $1 million. Already on that path. And the money we're talking about is not just the caregiving. Remember, I also have the concierge nursing service line and the geriatric care management service line. So, so that's where the intention comes. I just make the decision to do it and then do it.
So with this, and in really creating this income and impact, there was marks, there was goals, there was things that you did along the way, and you created intention. Mm-hmm. I want to talk just for a minute as we kind of pull this full circle. Let's talk about the intention you had with you, because you had an incredible impact on your daughters. You've had an incredible impact on your team, the people who you are hiring, the clients you're serving, the referral partners you're bringing solutions to. But let's talk about the impact you've had on you. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the confidence that has grown, the courage, the badassery that's just happening within who you are. So you're a nurse. You know you're a good nurse. Now you're an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. and you know you're a good entrepreneur. Walk me through that transformation, that growth of confidence and certainty that you got this.
The best thing that's happened for me would be to create a space. I'm like closing my eyes as I think about it, but creating a space to analyze, first of all, where your defects are. And that's not even a negative thing. Again, I always thought I was going to be a bedside nurse. I worked for corporate. They were always told me what to do. And I really realized, even though I do have a lot of leadership qualities, I've never had to actually just lead like from a blank slate. And so I got really honest with myself. I had to get honest. First and foremost for me was one of the things, but also recognize fear is real and failure is real, and failure is going to happen, and to not be afraid of the failure. I would literally shake when something in my mind, Jenny's mind, was a failure, because I love perfectionism. But I've literally, I we had a no call, no show last Saturday. We had it handled. You know what I mean? First time it's happened in 3.5 years. But that I literally stopped myself last weekend and I thought, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it bugged me. Of course it bugged me. How can someone do that? Right. But at the same time, I did not have this visceral reaction again. And I think it's because of the work I've done, the systems I put in place, but the internal part of like, we've got this, failure is going to happen, but we have a plan B in place, you know, but I wouldn't have even known all that if I hadn't jumped in feet first in January, you know what I mean? And then had some failures along the way. So honesty, recognizing that you are going to be afraid, recognizing failures are absolutely going to happen, recognizing that I can't do it all by myself, because that is also my nature. I want to do it all by myself. And then I get stressed out and everybody in the world around me has to, you know, deal with my stress. So relying on my team a lot more and even calling out my team to say to me, if I'm getting in your lane, and trying to control what you have in place for today, I give you permission to, you know, request of me, their boss, Jenny, to get back into my lane and not meddle so much and let them, because I cannot have this impact and income that I really, really want to have unless I do leverage them. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but and kind of a hodgepodge. But
I think it's important to recognize in this
oh,
that through this, you have actually created your own momentum and motivation. You didn't look from outside. You found a community. You found great friends. We love it when you come to the summits, and because you're such this life force when you come in. The reason for that is because you have an impact generator within you. And, you know, I talk about engines all the time in business. You have to have an engine. You have an impact engine that you have manifested within your business that derives from you. And I think this is something that's important to recognize, because we're talking about how can you have impact and income? It's because you established an end result. You knew that whatever you were doing, it was actually always for impact. Impact was your greater outcome. It wasn't just to make money. It wasn't just to increase. Money is good, right? But having the money to take a trip to Paris is great. But you knew the outcome of that trip to Paris. It could have been a trip to Paris, Kentucky, right? Now, granted, the Disneyland's not as great there, but the trip didn't matter. It was the connection, the contribution that you were truly having. And this is what I think you've become a true master of. You have mastered and are mastering the art of contribution and connection in the midst of productivity. And to have income and impact, and I've been thinking a lot about this walking up to the show, and I've been so excited about you coming on, because as I really poured into this, income and impact happen because contribution and connection are the fuel of your productivity. If you're just producing, it doesn't matter. But if you're producing through connection and contribution, then impact is always the driver.
100%.
So let's talk about this in the last few minutes here. How can a nurse, how can a business owner look at what they're doing right now and say, okay, well, I'm not at $1 million. I'm not at 5 million. I'm not at 100 million, or I am at 100 million. I am at 50 million. I'm at 500,000. How can I have contribution and connection right now? What's one of the ways, or a couple of the ways that you in your day create that connection and contribution?
The first answer that comes to my mind, honestly, as far as being a nurse, and I think most nurses we're in it for the genuine, we're loving, caring people. We're codependent. We want to, take care of everybody else and fix everybody. I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying. I really leverage, first of all, I'm lucky I had a critical care background for almost the entire time in the hospital setting. My assertiveness in that setting, I literally think probably once or twice a week having to use those skills and put it towards my business. And I remember, I'd have a patient bleeding to death and I was not afraid to speak up and like get things done. You know what I mean? And that person's life was on the line. Here I am running a business. My business is on the line if I don't speak up. You know what I mean? So I would say doing that and not being afraid. The other thing is, I just took the time to, what do I do as a nurse when I was in the hospital setting that gave that above and beyond care to a patient that possibly saved their life? So what am I going to do in my business to give that above and beyond care to keep my business breathing and healthy? And so for me, I mean, it's obviously, I really feel like my assessments going into the home, my home care assessments prior to them even hiring us, I literally almost have 100% conversion rate. But I've been told it's because I know I've got that connection piece. I'm a people person, so I am blessed that that's one of my superpowers. But the questions I ask, I care not just that they want somebody that can cook and drive them to medical appointments. I go deeper than that. I use some of my clinical experience, getting medication lists, what's the medical history, and create a little timeline for them. And so some of those components I brought into the business, even though they're not using me, some of them for my nursing services. Some of it is, I don't want to say just the home care, but it's not. But also using selling the home care, it is a selling strategy.
Yeah.
For those families to realize that how important nutrition is to healing the body, how important hydration is to prevent UTIs and falls and dizziness. And so when I go out there and communicate those things, selling that product line, service line, but also I'm also leveraging my nursing background because it all comes together.
It does. It's all connected.
Yeah,
Right?
it is.
What did we say in Action Leaders? So income and impact. How do you achieve it? How do you have it? Is because you put connection and contribution as the driving force behind your productivity. I love that. I think that is genius how you have really ingrained that. And how do you know it to be successful? I think if you go and I recommend everyone, right? Go and check out, number one, go to heartofgoldcare.com and you can go and look at the Facebook group or look at their Facebook page. Your Facebook page is a glowing example of what we call home care influencers, influencing your team, your clients, your business, your community, your referral partners. Your influence is there. And on your Facebook page, it literally, I was scrolling through it, everything is a support and a solution. You're not a service, you're a solution.
Mhm.
And it goes when you did the 4th of July, you gave tips on how to make sure seniors were prepared and good with it and clean out their hearing aids and make sure this is set. And you had all these. Then you go out and here's how you can help make sure the heat doesn't affect them. And then you have this beautiful collaborative post that you're doing where you're collaborating and you're referencing a partner of yours. It's this incredible connection and contribution. You're contributing to the community, you're connecting. It's beautiful. And I think those that are watching this right now, and I would love to hear your takeaway from this. Put it in the comments, whether you're live or you're watching a replay. Tell me what your takeaway is from this, because mine is connection and contribution drives my productivity. And I'm going to take that to my own world. And I'm already thinking in my own mind. I've been taking notes and like making little markers and like, go listen to this again, because you're a perfect example of why this is the ActionCast isn't a podcast. It's a show, because what you just gave for income and impact is a masterclass. You just walked us through a masterclass of how to have income and impact. And that matters in life. And so thank you so much for coming on and just really creating an amazing impact in the lives of those, creating impact in my life. And I love what you are doing. So, parting thoughts. You have an owner out there right now who says, you know what? The poo fan is going at me right now. It's just throwing it at me. I want to have impact and income What's the first thing I really need to look at to start creating the future I want?
Yourself.
I
Start with
love
you.
it. Impact internal, and then let the internal impact the external. So good. So good. All right, Jenny, thank you so much. I
Love you,
appreciate you. You
Clint.
have been incredible. For those of you watching right now, we want to know how to make income, impact. A network of people is incredible. And Jenny mentioned being part of the home care owners community. And with Home Care Ops Nation, we have the largest in the world of home care owners and operators. It is incredible. Make sure and go join the community if you're not part of it. There's amazing knowledge there. Jenny's in there giving out incredible tips. Make sure to go connect and really create incredible impact so that the income drives that impact. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, this is the Action Cast where we give actionable information that you can take right now to go out and create income and impact. Y'all keep taking action, and we'll see you on the next episode.